the book is so much better, which is usually true, but like the book is this weird literary, again, Russian nesting doll, and the movie is like a hodgepodge of nonsense.
Welcome to Shoulda Books, the podcast about all the books you should have read by now. My name is Jonathan, and today I am talking to Will Witwer. Will works for the Try Guys. That's how I met him. He is kind of a podcaster about town these days. You can catch him on a lot of different podcasts. For instance, Perfect Person, which we're big fans of here at Shoulda Books. Will and I had a very fun conversation, and if you want to hear the full extent of, well, not the full extent. I did cut some things, okay? It's Will. All right, it's Will. But if you want an extended version of the conversation that I had with Will, you can get it on the Shoulda Books Patreon. There you can get ad-free extended episodes of Shoulda Books. So you can hear, for instance, in this episode, you can hear Will and I talk about John Grisham. You can hear us talk about weed and reading and whether those two things mix. You can hear us talk about, we have an extended cold open where, Will kind of questions my ability to mix sound, which is very fun, and even more. So if you want the extended version of this episode, go check that out on Patreon. And I want to say a huge thank you to everyone who has already signed up for the Patreon. It really does mean so much to me. I love making this show. This Patreon helps me make the show even better. And so if you want, like I said, the ad-free extended versions of episodes like this, you can find that there. If you want to join the Discord, we have an exclusive Discord server. You can join that there as well. If you want to hear me and Joyce Louis-Jean trash Wuthering Heights, the 2026 adaptation starring Jacob Elordi and not Emerald Fennell, she directed it. Starring Jacob Elordi and Margot Robbie, directed by Emerald Fennell. Who cares? You can find that at the Patreon as well. And we did not hold back. I did not like that movie, mainly because I love the book so much. So if you are also in the same boat and you want to hear that discussion, you can find that on Patreon. And if you don't want to sign up for one of the tiers of the Patreon, you can also get any of the posts on there a la carte. So if you are like me, you watched the film version of Wuthering Heights and you're like, man, I really didn't like that. I'd like to hear some people kind of trashing it. Then you can find that on the Patreon, $3 for that post. It's pretty much $3 for any post if you want to just buy them, as a one-off. So head on over there if you haven't already. Patreon.com/Shoulda Books. So other housekeeping. For the Shoulda Book Club, we are reading Jane Eyre by Emily's sister Charlotte, and I am a little further behind than I would like to be at this moment, but fear not, I will catch up, and we will have an episode about Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte on February 28th, so stay tuned for that. And if you want to follow along with reading along, if you want to read along, you can find that over on Fable. You can join the Shoulda Book Club at Shoulda Books on Fable. I mess it up every time. Shoulda Books on Fable. That's where you can find the Shoulda Book Club. All right, shall we get to the episode? Let's do it. This is my conversation with good old William Wallace Witwer. Let's hit the books. Will Witwer, how you doing? Welcome to Shoulda Books.
Happy to be here. What's up? Hello.
We were talking in the extended cold open, which if you want to check out, go find Shoulda Books on Patreon, sign up.
Sick.
And Will was he was being mean to me.
I don't think so.
Which check the tape. Check the tape.
I would like to direct you to a book that I haven't read, but I've only heard of, called Conflict is Not Abuse.
God, here we go.
That is a real book. That is a real book that I've heard people talking about.
Conflict is Not Abuse.
Yeah, I think it's by a woman named Sarah Schulman. It got some play in sort of Trump 1, woke 1 era. Yeah, I don't know how to explain it, but
No, keep going.
Essentially, I think it was in some way. I genuinely have not read it, and I mostly only remember the title. But my memory of it is that it was a corrective to certain left-wing narratives of some people saying like, you can't have a conflict with me, you're abusing me. And this person being like, well, actually, no, we need to have constructive conflicts.
We do need to have constructive conflicts.
Anyway, didn't read the book though.
Yeah. We were talking a little bit in the cold open about the books you brought today and how these maybe aren't the books.
That's right.
You were starting to say that your mind initially went to kind of more pretentious titles. I'm curious what some of those titles were and why you backed off.
So I do sort of have a reason here. I mean, you could accuse me of being lazy and choosing books that are already on my shelf, and I would agree with that. But I would also say that I like the books on my shelf, and they're there for a reason. It's not just, this was here.
Have you read all the books on your shelf?
Not literally all of them, but I've read most of them. I honestly think it's kind of shameful to have read literally every book that you own.
You think it's shameful?
I think everyone should own a book that they haven't read and intend to get to, and they don't ever need to.
Okay.
But everyone should have at least one or two. They're like, eventually I'll get to reading
it's
this
aspirational.
one. Yeah. You should be buying more than you're reading.
You should have weights in the gym that you haven't lifted yet.
No. It's just different than the gym, because the gym is a means to an end.
I thought that was a perfect metaphor. Is not reading a means to an end?
I don't know. I feel like you got to enjoy the journey a little bit. But I as far as these books go, yes, I did cast around my apartment, and I was thinking about the big broad scope. And there, I have no real credentials. I liked English classes. I majored in English, and that's it.
You have more credentials than I do, because English major.
Being an undergraduate English major just like doesn't move me. You know what I mean? Like I liked it, but if someone is like, yeah, man, I was an English major, that means I have any authority. I'm like, yeah, you fucking don't, bro. I'm sorry, and I say that for myself as well. But so I just had a lot of good teachers that illuminated, I would say, works that I would have had a hard time with just reading on my own. So like when I think about that, I would have put in my pretentious picks is like Madame Bovary, which I read in high school. Okay. I just had a teacher, Miss Bryant, who she had gotten married and changed her name to Miss Bryant, and so the kids would say, "How's Kobe doing?" Anyway, that just sort of was
the kids. It was you.
It wasn't me. It was just a joke that I carried on. I didn't come up with it. But she did not like it, and she never liked it because she obviously was not married to Kobe Bryant. Obviously, Kobe Bryant not even a good guy. So, like, Miss Bryant was really into Faulkner, and she was really into Flaubert, and was able to like teach these fairly complex works in a way that like illuminated them. And specifically, like we read The Sound and the Fury in high school, which like the beginning of The Sound and the Fury is written from the perspective of someone who is, mentally handicapped, and that is very tough to understand what's going on. And it's like intentionally confusing. And like, but she was so passionate about it that she was able to like make us all kind of like it. Or maybe not all of us, but like, I just find that like it's hard for me to recommend those works because I don't know that if you just read them on your own, you're going to get the same experience. Like I associate it with the teachers in my life who helped me get there and like made it readable. And so I felt like if I was going to recommend this book that I haven't read since high school, it's me recommending the memory of something and try to sound more cultured. And I'm like, well, whatever. Because Madame Bovary, incredible book.
I never read it.
It's so good. It's like a satire of romanticism. Like, Madame Bovary starts to like do things like have affairs because she's unsatisfied with her life, and she thinks that having a more romantic, she's like, having a more romantic outlook is like what she wants, and then she's sort of tortured for it. And like specifically at the end, she wants to have this big dramatic death, and she takes what is it? Not cyanide. She eats a poison, arsenic, and she thinks she's gonna have this like dramatic suicide, and instead it's like a long, slow death over the course of days, and it's like sort of played as a joke. Like it's not funny, but it's a little bit funny that she had this expectation that's totally wrong. Like given that her character is this like Madame Bovary is like an ultimate romantic who represents the values of romanticism, and then is kind of like, it's funny, even though it's sort of torturing her, and she is a tragic character. Anyway, so all that to say is, like, I don't know that you just read Madame Bovary and you get all of that nuance. And it's been ages since I read it, but like, I didn't. So there's books like that, or like, but yeah, if you have someone who's like I had a teacher who's really obsessed with Milton. And I took a John Milton class where we read Paradise Lost twice, although I didn't read it one time all the way through because that's the kind of student I was. And but I did write a really good essay about hell, which is only the first 2 books of Paradise Lost. It's just like 12. Anyway, and like Milton is another thing. It's like the language is old. It's like something where having someone to guide you through it really makes it pop. And if you're just like, oh, I'm going to go and read this classic now, I feel like it's kind of hard. I don't know. Have you ever like read a classic or tried to read a classic and then been like, I'm going to put this one down?
Look, I'll say this. So this month in the Shoulda Book Club, we're reading Jane Eyre. And I'll say I'm not loving it.
Oh, I like Jane Eyre, actually.
Okay.
But that was also one we read, I want to say high school. So again, I have this teacher who I think did a really good job. Like, it's just, if you just read classics, I find it to be a little bit hard to just fully, at least some works. Some works are easier to approach and are just like The Great Gatsby is not going to be that hard, probably even in 100 years, you know? Yeah. But at a certain, the language gets old enough and you have to look up all this stuff of like, what is this? Oh, it's a type of cloth.
They also just like the way that the sentences are structured is so much more complex than what we are used to, and sometimes you get lost in the maze. But
100%.
I don't hate Jane Eyre at this point, but I also I'm not loving it. It's also like the inevitable comparison to her sister's novel Wuthering Heights. I just loved Wuthering Heights so much more.
Yeah,
I think not fair. It's not fair.
Maybe I'm wrong, but to use a term that the critic Stephen Hayden, who we're both a fan of, coined, that I feel like the default smart opinion is that Wuthering Heights is better. Yeah, I have not read Wuthering Heights, so I can't really opine on that. But I do think that I'm very excited about this film.
Yeah, you're going to see the movie?
No. No, but I haven't read the book, and I haven't heard good things.
If you want to hear my thoughts on the movie, which at the time of this recording, I haven't seen the movie yet, but by the time this comes out, I will have seen the movie. Anyway, on Patreon, there's an episode of me and Joyce Louis-Jean discussing Wuthering Heights. I'm going to assume that we had really strong feelings about it, and I will be recording that after this episode. This is the magic of editing, but you know what? I like to take people under the hood. That's right. Show them what's going on here. Yeah. And Will hates that.
No, I don't. I have no opinion on it. I think a lot of the podcasts I listen to do similar things where they'll be like, let's carbon date this episode and talk about like specifically news today, for real.
So Will, obviously to me, because I know you, you read a lot.
I would say that I do, but I also feel like I'd like to do it more.
Okay.
Because I feel like, I don't know, I'm in a book club, and I will say 2 of these 3 choices were picks from the book club.
That's allowed.
But that is sort of my primary method of reading these days, is like having a deadline, having a like, hey, you got to read this book. My frequent thing is I'll read about half the book, and then I read the second half in about a day or 2. So I read half the book over a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Because I'm trying to dedicate more actual time to reading instead of just before bed, because just before bed I get about a page in and then I conquer the
I hardly ever read right before bed.
It just doesn't, I get no progress. Yeah. It's like, and it's fine to read one page, but like if that's all I'm doing, then I'm not actually reading the book really.
Yeah.
So, but it's one of these things where like I have read a good amount and I'd like to read more, and I'm, but I don't know if I would say a lot. Like there are people out there really, truly doing it, and I feel like I'm getting a book or 2 a month, maybe.
That's still, that's still like so much more than a lot of people.
I guess that's true. Yeah, I am pretty disheartened when I think about that.
Like when you look at the numbers.
But that's kind of why I think this podcast is a good idea, because I feel like there's a market of readers out there.
Boy, I sure hope so.
Because I feel like it's a niche thing sort of now, in a way that is kind of a bummer. I don't know.
But what sort of books are you reading for the book club generally?
We basically just read novels. Although we have read a couple of, we read like a memoir. We read a memoir about a woman who was like homeschooled her entire life. What is that book? Uneducated?
Educated.
Yeah.
Educated.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to read that.
It's good. It's interesting. I think it's a very interesting story. And so, but mostly we're reading novels. The way we do it is we have people pick two choices, and then everyone else in the club, or everyone gets to vote on between those two. So there's an illusion of democracy. The funniest thing is when someone just wants one book to pick, and then they like, why didn't everyone vote for the one I wanted? It's the funniest outcome to me. And sometimes it's close, and sometimes it's not close at all. Yeah.
Well, we all know how you feel about democracy.
No.
But let's get into the books that you brought. You brought
sick.
3 books that you think everyone should read, but these were the books that were at hand.
Yes. Yes. These are books that I have. And again, I could have said Madame Bovary. I could have said, I thought about going to some Thomas Pynchon stuff, which I love Pynchon, but it's like, I don't feel like I can really own and it's hard to recommend.
It's hard to read.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, I really like Thomas Pynchon, but like, if you're like telling people like, you got to read The Crying of Lot 49, it's only 150 pages.
I'm trying to right now. And
it's good. I've read it,
but boy, does it's talk about a book that like you read a page and you're like, I'm ready to fall asleep.
The thing is, what you have to do with Thomas Pynchon, and this is advice I got from my best friend for reading Gravity's Rainbow, but I think it's applicable to most of his work, is like, there will be sentences you don't understand, and you just have to go like, oh, that's a nice little poem, and then you have to keep going, because sometimes it's not going to make sense. Sometimes it's like intentionally disorienting.
You never did the Kenosha, kid.
But so, yeah, that's why I was like, okay, I'm going to pick books that I think not necessarily would like appeal to everyone, but wouldn't be like, oh, you have to be into classic literature, or you have to have a good teacher who can illuminate this.
Right.
Or is like this work that I really admire and think is great, but like, I don't know that I think everyone needs to read this because it is hard. So I picked somewhat more approachable things.
Okay.
Let me grab them.
All right. It's 3 David Baldacci books.
Okay. Should I go one at a time?
Let's go one at a time.
Okay.
Let's go one at a time.
I forgot which order I stacked them.
He's hiding. He's got them wrapped up in a shirt.
Wrapped up in a beautiful shirt.
Okay, what do we got?
Okay. So,
Cloud Atlas.
We're talking
with David Mitchell.
Yes. Now, this is a book I'm a huge fan of.
Okay.
I'm a huge fan of this book.
Yes.
Now, this book we did not read for our book club. This is one of the 3 that we did not pick.
Okay.
This.
Show it to the camera.
The camera's here. This is God, this book's so awesome. First of all, I have my annotated versions from college. You can, I read this in a college class.
Okay.
So there's some really fun marginalia in here.
I
want
to read those notes.
Okay, so one of these just says "Ha." So really good stuff. I wrote meta a lot.
Hold on, I just want to see if you can put yourself back in the mindset of you sophomore year reading this book. Why would you write "ha"? First of all, senior year. Second of all, well, because one of the things that I do to myself that isn't really for a purpose, but I like to do, if I ever reread my notes, I like to find a little joke that I wrote to myself later. And so, like, I like to write, in college, I used to write LOL when I thought something was funny in the margins, because that always amused me to see later, and then, yeah, like, this is, aha is like, that's not me losing it. That's me recognizing the comedy. It's like it's a single sustained ha. It's your thing, and you do this in real life where someone says something and you go, that's funny. Sometimes I do. But you don't laugh. Well, you can't laugh at everything. It's true. It cheapens the actual ha moments. But this book, okay, so I've seen the movie, which, what a fucking movie. The movie's fucking crazy. And I think the movie made people think that the source material probably sucked. Okay. The movie does this thing. It drives me fucking crazy. Blackface. No, that's it is related to that. Yeah. It is related to that because they choose it to have the cast repeat. Yes. Which in the book they do not. That is not. It is not a story of like people through time. Okay. Or like that. Okay. So just real quick. Okay. So the movie is like these like 7 or 8 different stories over different time periods. Directed by like 3 different directors. A crazy thing that only got made because the Wachowskis sisters made the Matrix, so they got to make this movie, and it totally tanked, and everyone hated it. Yeah, it's really fun, but it's a mess. There's moments of it that the score is beautiful. Yeah, the music is incredible, but like in those like 7 stories, they have the same actors playing all the characters, and they have white characters playing black characters. They have. Asian characters
playing
white characters. Like,
so that part is confusing, but also it's just not part of the story.
I figured it had to be part of the story for them to make a choice like that. So they just made that choice just for like,
and like there's this idea that the stories are all linked. And there's a tattoo that's shared, but they are not the same people. And I think it was done because it was like, in order to get this made, we need Tom Hanks, who's in that movie, by the way.
Yeah, wow. Wonder how he feels about that.
No, he was really passionate about making it at the time. So maybe he looks back and goes, yeah, that's sick. I'm glad we made it. Or maybe he's like, that's my biggest regret.
Wonder what Tom Hanks' biggest regret is.
Cloud Atlas is the movie, again, connects these characters in a way that it's not meant to be. And the book is the reason why it probably should have ever been a movie is that like each story, so there's like 5 or 6 stories. Okay. I read this in a senior seminar, futuristic fictions, shout out.
Okay.
Because Cloud Atlas does go to a dystopian place, even though it doesn't start there. It starts in like a Herman Melville sort of. Basically, each story is written in the style of books that it calls out.
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
So reading this in college was exciting because first of all, it was one of the few books that I truly was ahead on in my reading in college. Like I finished it like weeks ahead of time because I just found it so engrossing. But there is actually a lot of substance to it too. Like I don't think all of David Mitchell's work, which I've read a good amount of it, and he did some stuff that's sort of like world building where he like ties it together in almost like a comic booky way, ties some of his earlier works to this work.
Okay.
That shit was awesome to me, but I don't think it's like high art. I think Cloud Atlas though is a really, really like precision, like it's so well structured because the structure is the metaphor is a Russian nesting doll, a matryoshka.
Oh, that's the term. That's the actual. I guess it makes sense that there would be an actual Russian word for it.
Oh well, it's a Russian thing.
Because it's what is it again? Say it again.
A matryoshka. Now I could be saying that wrong, but I do believe that I learned the word from the book Cloud Atlas, and it's because they make the metaphor. But it's a story, and then you open one layer, and there's another story.
Right.
So basically, not to spoil the book, but I kind of talk about it a little bit.
Mild spoilers ahead. Proceed with caution.
To be honest,
major spoilers.
I'm not going to resolve. I'm not going to explain. I'm not going to resolve it, but I will spoil the basic structure of the work, which is important, and I think it's important to talk about because it is basically it starts in one story, and then it gets to a cliffhanger where something seems bad is about to happen, and then it moves to a different story in a different time period in a different literary mode. So it goes from a Herman Melville story to like, God, I don't even remember all these. There's like a Martin Amis one, and they're really, really, they're all in fully different forms. So the first one's a journal that then someone is reading, that then someone is reading. So like it is fully this metatextual thing, and it goes all the way to the future and to like the collapse of civilization.
Yeah.
And then we start going back and putting the dolls back together, and we go back through the stories.
Oh, wow.
And we get the resolution of everything. So the structure of the work is kind of the whole thing in a lot of ways. And I could go into. I'm very passionate about it. I think it's great. I don't think like one of them is written to be a crummy spy novel. Like, and that's what's funny is that like in the movie you don't get the vibe. There's just this weird spy sequence. You're like, what the fuck is this?
Is that the one where like Halle Berry drives off the bridge?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So when you're reading this, it's a cheap, like trashy crime fiction book that's being read later by a literary critic who is put into an old folks home ahead of his time.
Yeah.
Basically, each story has people facing various injustices. It goes through history, starts in the 1800s, moves again into the dystopian future. There, and then it goes all the way back. And by the end, you go back to the Herman Melville story, and there's this like. Again, I could talk in detail about each section, but I won't do that because I feel like that's not interesting if you haven't read it. And I don't want to spoil it. Yeah. But at the very end, which I find very meaningful, is sort of like it's asking the question, like, why should you try to fight injustice? Is sort of like, what's the point?
Yeah.
Because you've seen how bad things get historically.
Sure.
And you've seen people choose, in some cases succeed, in some cases fail, to like resolve their situations. Like some of the stories have a tragic ending. But anyway, so I just want to read this ending. So his father-in-law is talking about slaves and why we don't need to fight slavery, basically. So it's going back to this historical injustice.
Okay.
His evil father-in-law.
Okay.
Let's see. Let's see. Naive dreaming Adam, he who do battle with the many-headed hydra of human nature must pay a world of pain, and his family must pay it along with him. And only as you gasp your dying breath shall you understand your life amounted to no more than one drop in a limitless ocean. Yet what is any ocean but a multitude of drops? And that's the end of the book. So the idea is not that you should like give up. It's like you should try because it like and so. What I love about the book is that each story is different. It's funny. There are things that connect them. There's a Cloud Atlas is a symphony that someone composes in one of them that then someone plays in a different. So there's all these really cool connections, and then also each story is really really cool. And you don't have to deal with weird Tom Hanks speaking that weird language. Like
that's right.
Like again, anyone who hasn't seen the Cloud Atlas movie, I really recommend it. It's crazy. It's insane. It's totally nuts. It's not good.
Should we do a Shoulda Films?
I absolutely would.
Episode on Cloud Atlas?
I'd love to rewatch it.
Oh my God.
It's like 3.5 hours also, because the book is really long.
Yeah,
but it reads really fast. I hope to find another fun marginalia part.
Well, it's really funny because of what the book is. You having this experience of going back, reading your own notes is kind of a mini version of the story.
Totally. Yeah. And so like, here's a helpful note. I just wrote truth again. And then it's because like what happens is the middle story, the story that bridges before it goes back is in this fallen future where like, it's the classic, I don't know what the term is. I'm sure there is a word for this and I wish that I knew it, but it like society has fallen and then we've become primitive again. And then there's still technology sort of still there lingering, but we don't remember how to do anything anymore. That's the whole Tom Hanks doing the weird voice he's not supposed to be that old. He's supposed to be a kid. Anyway, they made a lot of insane decisions in that movie. And I truly like, I when I talk about the movie and the book, the book is so much better, which is usually true. But like the book is this weird literary, again, Russian nesting doll. And the movie is like a hodgepodge of nonsense. So because in the movie they're integrating the stories are happening all simultaneously. In the book it's one story and then cliffhanger and then you see someone.
We're not interspersing in the same way.
So it's the structure is fully gone from the movie and they just tried to make it just is a mess. There's some good stuff, but it's mostly bad.
I saw the movie in college, and college is like definitely the time when you're thinking, at least for me, was when I was like thinking about those things the most, where you're just like the things that the older you get, the more banal they get, of just like, whoa, we're all connected. It's like, that is a crazy thought. It is totally. But like the older you get, the more you're just like, yeah, duh, no, like obviously.
Well, that's kind of what I like about Cloud Atlas is that I think that the book makes the case that we're all connected in this like grand moral project together, and that we need to like try to do the best, even though there are people who out there are evil. Like the book depicts like genuine evil. There's a phrase in the first story that I think about all the time, and I keep saying stories. It's a novel, but it's a weird one.
Right.
And the first one. There's the weird guy who's maybe the devil. There's like there are evil people who show up in each story. And there's somebody who he keeps saying the weak are meat that the strong do eat. And that is a sort of an idea echoed throughout the book that like the victors write history, and that like that there is a certain class of people being exploited, and that's sort of the natural order of things. And the reversal is like, no, you need to fight against that, even though these people exist. Like these evil forces exist. Yeah. So I find it to be somewhat inspiring, maybe a little, and then just like a thrilling read, honestly. And again, there's all this like fun literary references, and some of the sections aren't as good because like the trashy spy novel is like, this is a weird like satire, and but there's like 3 or 4 sections that I think really stand out. But I think reading it, the structure just sort of carries you. And sort of going to societal collapse and going back and then thinking about like, maybe could things be different? Like the idea is there's sort of a political push of like, capitalism bad, capitalism doing bad stuff, which I appreciate as always. And
that's not what you were saying in the cold open. That's interesting.
Well, you're gonna have to pay to find out.
You gotta pay to find out. Yeah, speaking of capitalism. But and speaking of structure, the structure of the fucking podcast. What's your next book?
Okay, next one. Let's see. I can't remember which order I'm doing this. Okay, we're talking about. This is a book that I read for my book club based on my mom's recommendation. My mom reads a ton. She reads more than me, and It is called The Door. It is by a Hungarian author who I wish I knew how to say the name of, Magda Szabo. I don't know. This is an incredible book, and it's also not one that I think everyone has heard of. I certainly hadn't heard of it.
I'm not familiar with it.
It is so it's Hungary. I want to say this is written in 1983.
Okay.
But it's looking
Soviet era.
Yeah, 1987. She was looking back at her life when a certain kind of political writing became unfrozen and her career sort of started again. Anyway, so the book is it's not really about her being a writer though. It's about her housekeeper mostly, who is this incredible woman named Emrance, and it opens with her having this nightmare of being in front of this door and being unable to open it, and it's sort of, the book builds to this incredible climax. I described this book as fun to my book club, and everyone was like, no, it's not fun at all, it's very tragic, it's very sad. But what I was trying to say is, like, for a translated Hungarian book, this book fucking moves. It's not boring at all. Essentially the book is about, the first 3/4 of it are about the relation between the writer character, who is, I think, mostly unnamed, and Emrance, her housekeeper. Emrance sort of represents the Hungarian peasantry, but she was also, in a very specific way, she helped people escape the Nazis in World War II. And this is and she is trying to connect with people that she saved, and she has all these mysteries about her, and you don't know if she's protected people or if she actually looted them. And essentially she's this private person. She's immensely industrious. She's it's such a fascinating character. It's hard to even explain. I don't know that it's not as exciting as Scarlet Atlas. There's no future dystopia, but this her housekeeper is such a mysterious woman. And then there's this crisis that happens, and they essentially make a choice that violates her dignity and is a tragedy. So it's really hard to explain. God, this book is such a hard pitch. It really is good though. I can read the back of the book if you want to see if this it gives you more of a sense.
Yeah, only if you do it in an accent.
I can't.
Or a fun voice.
Like a Hungarian accent? I can't do that.
No, actually, no. You know what? Strike that. You can just whatever feels good.
Okay, good. Because I'm not. I desperately wish I could do an accent, and I've thought about taking classes just so I could annoy people with it. Because I really wish I could do voices. Anyway,
when was the last time you tried?
I try all the time, and it just doesn't work. It's Magda is the writer, educated, married to an academic, public-spirited, with on and off again.
I see what you mean. You
see what I'm saying? I fucking can't do it. I fucking suck at it.
Okay.
Magda is a writer, educated, married to an academic, public-spirited, with an on and off again relationship to Hungary's communist authorities. Emrance is a peasant, illiterate, impassive, abrupt, seemingly ageless. She lives alone in a house that no one else may enter, not even her closest relatives. She is Magda's housekeeper, and she's taken control over Magda's household, becoming indispensable to her. And Emrance, in her way, has become to depend on Magda. They share a kind of love, at least until Magda's long-sought success as a writer leads to a devastating revelation. And, yeah.
So there's an element of autofiction here because the actual author's name is Magda.
Correct. Yes. Okay. So it's I don't know if this housekeeper is real or if this is a what is it? A composite is what they say. A composite of a couple of different things of different people that she knew, but there's a relationship about the upper class and the lower class, and she's writing all the stuff for the communist government, but it really ultimately turns on this saintly. Emirates is just an incredible. She's rude. She'll show up at any time. She's incredibly industrious. She does all this cleaning. She's does it all old school and is extremely suspicious. It's a really specific portrait. And maybe there's some political Hungarian shit that I missed, but I feel like reading it is still compelling without that stuff.
Yeah.
Because I don't have all I know is that basically once the Hungary became a communist state, and then her kind of political writing was enabled again, is sort of when it starts.
Okay, yeah. I was going to ask if because
I
I don't know a whole lot about Hungary.
Oh, I don't know shit. That's the thing about this book is like the reason why I really recommend the New York Times book review releases. These are, or no, sorry. Excuse me.
We'll take it again.
No, it's fine. I fucked it up. Sorry, a New York Review of Book Classics. The New York Review of Books has a line of books that they will translate and put out, and they tend to be really good works from across the globe that are like lesser heralded. So this is on that list, and as such, it's translated really well. It's very readable. You know this bad thing is going to happen, but you don't really know what it's going to be, and you don't really understand how devastating it's going to be until it happens.
Yeah.
And I don't even want to explain it because like I feel like it is, but it's a really hard book to pitch. My mom just said you got to read this; it's really good. And then I was like, okay, I'll put it on the book club list. And then no, that's not true. Sorry, I told my mom I read it first. I was going between reading the One Piece manga and then this book.
Okay,
because I like to keep it high and low culture.
Right.
And so I was reading because I had COVID at the time, and we were on vacation, and it was just like, well, we can't go skiing. We all got COVID. Great. This is like years into the pandemic.
I remember hearing about this.
So I'm just sitting there reading The Door, and then using the Shonen Jump app and reading 100 chapters a day. You can max out 100 chapters of One Piece, then I go back to The Door. It was a great situation, a great setup for me. Got a lot of good reading done, but. Then I nominated again for book club because I liked it so much. And but I find it a hard book to pitch, and maybe I should have thought more before coming here about how to pitch the book to someone who doesn't know anything about Hungary or whatever. But like, I don't know shit about that. And I found this to be really interesting. And I don't feel like the book is inscrutably based in Hungarian politics. And I don't think it would have gotten published by the New York Review Classics or whatever if it was. Because it's just like, if it's about that, it's also about other stuff.
Right. Does it remind you of some other books? Are there other books you could kind of make a comparison to?
I do find it to be somewhat haunting. And so I'm trying to think of again, this is why when I said this book is fun, people were bad at me. They were like, it's not fun at all. It's just not even close.
What
to
is
fun.
Your definition of fun when it comes to literature?
Well,
and also life, but we'll start with literature.
Literature is easier to define. No, I think that there is a fun quotient, and one of the reasons I like Cloud Atlas is like there's pulpy shit in there. You know, there's like sci-fi shit and like there's like so there's it's not a purely literary project. You know. And so sometimes I like novels that are, you know, realistic and about real life. You know, I just feel like fun is like the sort of low calorie version, or the like high fructose corn syrup version is your James Patterson's, your David Balducci, your airport books where like every chapter is exciting. Yeah. And I've read plenty of that in my life, you know, but at this point I'm trying to read mostly real books, and those are a little harder. And so I think what I meant by The Door is fun is like, this book is readable and interesting despite what it might sound like. A translated Hungarian novel doesn't sound like something that's going to be that exciting.
It sounds like an eat your vegetables kind of book, but vegetables can be delicious.
Well, they sure can. You have to develop an adult taste for them, though, you know? And
put a lot of garlic.
Generally speaking, garlic powder, garlic salt, other forms of garlic. Thyme is a little strong.
Thyme's a little too strong for you. Interesting. I made some asparagus last night.
With thyme on it?
Put a little thyme on it.
That's interesting. Garlic, I feel like just regular asparagus, olive oil, and salt and peppers, that's enough. Yeah, you know?
Well, you know, when you have an adult palate.
Maybe if I had an adult palate, I would understand. But no, I think that this book is not an Eat Your Vegetables book, even though it might seem like it. And I have a hard time pitching it other than like, it is, I think, very moving, and I've read it twice and I'd read it again. Like I find it to be, and when you asked me to compare it, like I was just looking at the blurb on the back, and I just want to read, this is from Scotsman. I hope that newspaper's still going.
I think so.
No brief summary could do justice to the intelligence and moral complexity of this novel. So,
do you want to try to do that like in a Scottish accent, or
absolutely donkey? The idea of Shrek reading a book is funny. Like Shrek reading any book is funny, right? Shrek doesn't read. Yeah, he looks at pictures while he's on the shitter. I think that's what happens canonical.
No, he's got a copy of Infinite Jest in there.
That got it so funny. Oh, and I did think about putting Infinite Jest on the list because I read it when I was 19, loved it. but haven't read it since, and it feels pretentious to be like, this is one everyone needs to read. It's so fucking long.
There was an interesting think piece I read recently because the book just turned 30.
Yeah.
And we don't have to get into it now, but I'll send it to you.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm very curious.
It is really fascinating. But how did your book club, what was there other than saying, Will, this wasn't fun? How did it go over?
I'm glad you asked this question because I should have maybe talked about this. So we have a book club that's like sort of a mix of men and women. And this was a book club where all the women did not show up. So it was me hosting. Just
the dudes.
And 3 dudes hanging out. And honestly, we had a really good time because we all loved the book. Which I did not expect to necessarily be the case. It's like, it's just, but I thought, I was hoping that would be the case. And it's a book about 2 women. So we had a really good discussion. We really nailed all the angles. I'm sure we thought of everything. No, but it was like, we had a great discussion about this book because we all found the ending to be this tragedy and were moved by it. And I think that's got to count for something. And it starts with the nightmare that's sort of foreshadowing to that moment. And then you're building in the narrative, you're building and building into it. And then it's just like, so sad to deal with the aftermath of it and to get confirmed. I mean, yeah, spoiler alert, she's not a Nazi. She's good. Emrance is good. Emrance is not secretly a Nazi, which is sort of rumored in the beginning of the book, but it's never, she's basically only does good things.
Okay. And she's punished for it.
Yeah, kind of. She lives this sort of tragic life and, and then they like, again, I don't want to spoil it, but they violate her will in a way that reduces. She would rather have died and kept her dignity than had what happened to her. Okay, and it's a fascinating thing where like they save her life, but she wished they had let her die. Yeah. So that's again, I'm not spoiling it, but
it kind of feels like a spoiler.
No,
it feels like a spiritual spoiler.
Yeah, it's spiritually, but it's like I'm not telling you anything of what they did or what the deal is. It's like
you're just gonna tell me how I'm gonna feel after I finish.
I mean, I think it's important. I don't know. You know that thing? You ever see like a preview for something and it makes you want to watch it, even though it is a spoiler? You know. Sometimes you got to give people a hint of the product because I feel like otherwise I'm telling you like, well, the first 3 quarters of the novel are like she's writing and then Emrance is cleaning her apartment. It's like there's nothing there.
It's kind of like the trailer for Cloud Atlas.
Oh my god!
Which the trailer featuring M83.
Yes,
it's a great trailer.
It's a great trailer.
I saw that and was like, I think I may like teared up a little bit, and I was like, I have to watch this movie. And then I watched the movie and I was like, oh my!
My brother Charlie saw Cloud Atlas, really stoned, fell asleep for like an hour, woke up, was still confused. It was still going. God. Like he fell asleep and the movie was still fully happening.
Probably didn't make a difference.
Yeah, no, he was like, I still liked it. It was still good.
Do you and your mom share book recs a lot?
Yeah, and I want to say, well, actually, no, I don't remember. Did she recommend this next one? Yeah, we do. My mom is always reading. My mom reads a variety of different things, has been in a lot of classrooms, so she's read a lot of kids' books, she's read a lot of young adult stuff, and then also is constantly reading, is in multiple book clubs, and that is, yeah, we exchange book recs a lot. And The Door was one of the ones where I was like, I trust you. And then I read it and was like, you know what? This is sick. This is really good. Which is like, you know, sometimes somebody is like, you got to read this. And then you're like, yeah, whatever. Because recommendations are so personal and books are so long. And I think about this all the time. We had this writer, Anthony Doerr, who wrote All the Light We Cannot See.
Oh,
yeah, which is really good.
Haven't read it, but.
He came to our college when he was less poppin', less famous. And he was like, he was basically like, look, even if you read a book a week from when you're 18 to when you're 80, that's like 2,000 books. Like, it's not that many. So his rule was always like, you should quit 50 pages in if you don't like it. Now, I don't think 50 pages is necessarily long enough.
That doesn't feel fair.
But I think you get 100 pages in and you're hating something. Like, don't force yourself to finish it as an adult when you have limited time.
Yeah.
Like, and like if you're doing it as part of a group to talk about it, that's one thing. But if you're just like, I hate this book, like, why? Life's too short. You know, but the Door was the opposite experience.
Okay. Has your mom led you wrong?
Gosh, I don't really think so. I mean, I feel like there are things that I say that when she recommends a book that she feels strongly about, it tends to be something where I'm like, Yes, I totally agree. It is good. But when it's like, oh, you should read this, as opposed to you have to, that's where I feel like, I wouldn't say she's gotten it wrong. It's just like, I feel like I maybe just declined to read some stuff that I'm like, oh yeah, it sounds good, but like, I'm not doing that one. But it is nice though, because she reads so widely and, I feel like she's out there. There's so many books. Nobody reads anymore. Everyone's writing a book. I don't know. I sound like an old man, but it is just like it's nice to have my mom who's like she's like reading the recommendation list from the New York Times. Like she's fully in tune with part of literary culture that I don't feel like I really am anymore because I'm not reading a newspaper every day, which I miss. Anyway.
Well, speaking of getting recommended books that you absolutely should, have to. Let's get to the last one. What do you got?
So, we're talking about this is another fairly recent book. Well, this is a fairly recent book. This is Susanna Clarke's Piranesi. Now, I want to say, where did I get this book? Was this a choice in our book club? It was. I can't remember who chose it though. I don't think it was me. This book fucking rocks. They're making a damn movie. They're making an animated movie though. Anyway,
okay. So it's not real.
No, so Piranesi is an incredible book. It is. I recommended it a bunch. I think it is a great contemporary novel. It is. Susanna Clarke, who wrote Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell in like 2005, then went through a bunch of horrible chronic pain where she was unable to write for like 20 years.
Oh, God.
And then she published this book.
Okay.
And it was, again, 20 years, I think, after she had published this other successful book. Huh. And the book isn't like about chronic pain, but it's set in this weird netherverse that you could see how she would maybe be adapting parts of her experience.
Okay.
Because basically Piranesi is this weird little guy who the whole form is in the form of journals, which I'm a big fan of. I love a journal. That's something in Cloud Atlas also. Like I like a creative form for what you're reading. So like, Piranesi is keeping a journal.
Okay.
And he is essentially, he has his own time system. He's talking about this weird building he's in, the Northern Hall. When the moon rose in the third Northern Hall, I went to the ninth vestibule. Is how the book begins.
Okay.
And he's living in this house that is bizarre, old, abandoned. There's no one else there. There's some dead bodies. And then there's also a ton of water inside. So it's this very surreal environment that he is living in. And what's great about Piranesi is that you start out totally confused as to where you are. And by the end of the book, you have an answer for everything, which is like, I'm not opposed to ambiguity. I think there's a lot of room for artistic ambiguity. It can be like a thing that I really like. But what I like about Piranesi is you start completely confuddled and you follow along with his journey as he's learning about this environment. He's writing new journal entries.
Yeah.
And so you're on the same page as the character. And then by the end, it is not only not ambiguous, it's like fully revealed in a way that is extremely satisfying. And yeah, he's this weird guy. He's living in this bizarre netherworld. And then there's a couple of people who talk to him, and you're sort of figuring out he's very trusting this Piranesi, and Piranesi is the name that somebody gives him, and they're only there sometimes. And like you're just trying to go, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
And it's a really again, like I said, it satisfies when you get to the ending. There's no ambiguity, but you go in being like, what the fuck is this? Like, why is this guy in this weird old house? How can it be flooded? How could there be all these animals living in it? Like, what's going on? And you get an answer. The
cover features. It looks like a fawn, like a half man, half.
That's the other thing. In the house, there are all these statues. Okay. So this is one of the statues.
This is a statue. This is not Piranesi.
No. Piranesi is a man.
Okay.
But
human man,
not Pan, playing one of these long sort of traditional
double
instruments. Flute. Yeah, whatever that is. Double horn. I have no idea.
I don't know what that's called. Yeah.
But yeah, so there's this idea that in this world there's this like ruins of civilization, or like not civilization, but there's these weird objects that shouldn't exist, that exist in large quantities, that are like unexplainable. And yeah, it fucking rocks. It's so good. It was let's see. So it won the Women's Prize for Fiction. It was, it got a bunch of listings.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Susanna Clarke, I think, wrote something really beautiful. And the reason why I brought up it's being made into a movie and that it's animated is like, I think you could do a live action version, but it would probably be crazy expensive to show this house with the water and there's like waves and tides within the house.
Oh, wow. Okay.
There's the house is he's trapped in a house that seems to be not in our world, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So the house is like, it's fucking awesome.
Huh. And it sounds like, I guess maybe it's a metaphor for like being in chronic pain.
Well, at least that's how some people have read it. I think that I don't think that is the only way to read it. And I think it also is just a satisfying story of like this guy who sort of exists in his own world, who eventually comes to understand why and how he ended up there.
Yeah.
And so do you.
How did this find its way into the book club? Was this someone else's recommendation?
Yeah, someone else picked this, and I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. Like, sure, I'll vote for this. Seems cool. And just like really loved it. I think it's funny. I think it reads great. And I think that, like I said, unlike some books where they're just ambiguous because they think that's what you're supposed to do to be like important, this book is like, no, where you're getting an answer. You have your answer. It's super satisfying. And I want to read it again because I just, yeah.
Do you reread books a lot?
No, I used to. Okay. There's no time.
That's kind of where I'm at. Like, I would like to be able to like experience books a second time and, learn something and blah, blah, blah. But it's just like, I barely have time to read books the first time.
Yeah, I used to read like a Star Wars novelization every single day when I was a kid.
You would do one a day?
Often, yes.
How long were they?
Not that long. But I'd read. Not. I'm not talking about the chapter books. I would like books I had already read and maybe could skim through parts. But there were periods in my life where I was reading a book a day, where I would just like reread a book. It'd be like X-Wing Squadron, shit like that, where it's like, here's the tales of Star Wars fighter pilots. It's like, it's not classy. It's like fully a page turner. So it's easy enough. Or like rereading John Grisham books. I used to do that.
That's how I know about
some
Grisham.
That's how I know about everything I know about the legal world.
That's why.
Not from my dad who's a lawyer, my uncles who are lawyers. It's all from John Grisham. Yeah. But yeah, God, I really like Piranesi. I feel like I've done a bad job sort of pitching it.
I don't think so. I think it sounds as you were describing it, it made me think of like a Charlie Kaufman movie.
And it definitely there's this element of like weirdness going on that is
surreality.
Yes, it's very intentionally immediately surreal, like a lot of Kaufman stuff is. And I think what's interesting is actually that it moves away from pure surreality into, again, by the end, you have you have an explanation of how this all happened.
Yeah.
And like, what's really funny is like Piranesi, who is what the other calls him, Piranesi is like really gullible.
Okay.
And he doesn't know, he seems to not have been raised in human society somehow. Like, and so there's this you just really like this cheerful guy who's exploring this house, and then the mysteries sort of get revealed, and like the house mystery, like you get enough information while getting not enough, so that as far as what the house is and what it represents. But I do think you can see it as a chronic pain analog of like being trapped in this nether region of and just sort of doing your thing anyway, and just sort of trying to go about your day.
Yeah. Do you feel like you learned anything profound about life from this book or any of these books? And if so, what?
So that's a good question. I mean, I think with Cloud Atlas, it's like the idea that I find so inspiring is that like things seem extremely hard, but they always will, and there will always be like sort of forces in history that are doing evil, and but that you like should still try to fill the ocean with drops because it's like that is what the ocean is, and like we need everyone kind of. It's like there's a it's like, it's not to say that we can fix all the problems, but that we should sure as hell still try kind of thing. Like, which I think it maybe sounds like you've already given up, but there is a level of like, it's going to be hard to fight for sort of justice and to protect, vulnerable groups, but it is something that like must be done.
Yeah.
And so I think it makes a very like compelling moral case that way. But also again has a lot of pulp and fun stuff that is not profound. That is like, the Wachowskis adapted the section in the future where there's like, escapes on an electric bike and shit like that.
Right.
But in the book, it's all an interview that's stored in the archives of this future government, and shows like you see this. She's like a political dissident and blah blah blah. And then I think The Door for me is like, it's hard to say this exactly because I don't want to reveal the thing, but to go back to what I was saying before, that like about how you're supposed to feel is like, ultimately, there are some people in the world who would rather die with their dignity than like be allowed to live, and like some people have their own idiosyncratic moral codes that like must be respected. That go beyond the bounds of like what we would think is normal or rational. I don't know, but I don't know if that's like a lesson exactly. I feel this character is so big, and you feel the tragedy of like the violation of her space and dignity, even though again it's done with the purest of intentions. And so that is something that I think I've gone back to. Is like, how were they doing the right thing? Should they truly have just let this woman die? And the answer I really do think is yes. Is like that it is not represented to be anything other than a failure. And I mean, spoiler, she does eventually die in the book. But like,
I knew the longer we roll, I was like, he's gonna end up spoiling.
But what I'm saying is like she is broken by this event that like was done. Like, I don't know. Maybe it just goes back to what my history teacher in high school used to say, that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I just think that the book gives you a powerful sense of like the line of like where you might think you're helping and where you actually might be encroaching upon someone's like personal dignity. But I don't actually know if that's anything coherent that I can apply to my life exactly. And then I will say Piranesi to me is like, one of the things I love about it is he's so cheerful. Like, he's reading about all this bad stuff, but he doesn't understand like how it got there, and what's fun about it is it's like he's approaching he's sort of imprisoned in this place, but he doesn't know anything else. So he is like, what's fun about him as a protagonist is that you're getting his impressions of the place that are with like peppered with optimism that you wouldn't think would be there. And it is explained narratively why, and I'm trying not to spoil it, but like I find that energy to be really fun. And I think that when you're thinking about being trapped in this sort of abstract house, I don't know. There's like the chronic pain thing does work. If like there's an element of like you can still have an existence, you're just in your own kind of universe. I don't know.
Well, I mean, it also kind of sounds like where we're at, like as a culture, just kind of trapped in this machine, trapped in this, endless series of funhouse mirrors that just reflect, our own issues and pathologies back to us infinitely, and like we have to find a way to stay optimistic.
100%.
Yeah.
And I actually think that's sort of somewhat part of all. I mean, again, The Door we're going to put in the tragedy pile. Okay, that's going right in the pile for tragedy. All right, it's about communism, and it's about the Nazis,
but it's fun.
And to me, it was very fun. Now, no one agreed with this. Everyone was mad at me, as I've said. But I would say that, yes, I think that there is an element of Cloud Atlas and Piranesi that are both like, there's an element of finding the positive and like
Yeah.
doing the thing even though it's hard, and and there are different perspectives on an element of that, at least is there. But
Well,
you
hey,
know,
2 out of 3 ain't bad.
but the thing is, like, it's really funny. So I have a friend, a close friend from high school, who she always says like she will read like a book about like Russian orphans with AIDS, but she won't read about future dystopias because she finds them so disturbing.
Huh.
And I'm like, but it sounds like the other thing is more real and way sadder. And you're like, yeah, but it's fine. It's actually fine. What I hate to imagine is not the horrors that we've done, but that we're going that direction. Like, she doesn't want to imagine future society like crashing and burning. And I'm like, well, I love dystopian literature. And like, it's always something that I find very, very compelling. So I just think it's funny because The Doors definitely falls more in line with like, but it's not a tragedy the way that like some things are. It's totally unique. Like, I don't know. It's not trying to make you cry in the way that some books are. Like, let's say A Walk to Remember. I've never seen it. My understanding is you cry. Okay. The whole thing is you cry. Like, her beautiful boyfriend, who was a great athlete or something. I'm making this up. I do not root. I have not seen it. But my understanding
Will explains the plots of movies he hasn't seen. This is the new segment.
That's a good segment. Because I could do it for some. Some I really could not do. And in fact, in this case, I do not know the specifics. All I know is I believe he's a football player. I believe he dies, and it's sad, and you're supposed to bawl in those last 10 minutes. That's not what The Door is. The Door is not a tearjerker. The Door is a serious work of literature.
It works for those tears.
I wouldn't even say you cry as much as just like you feel the enormity of this dignity violation, and like that's a different thing than being meant to cry. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. It's a depth charge that goes deeper into your soul.
I think so. I think it goes deeper, but it's less like it's likely to provoke tears. It's like firing a photon torpedo down your throat that is not going to go off. It's just going to sit there in your gut and kind of like make you feel bad. Whereas like, you know, some works of art or, you know, whatever, entertainment are just like, hey, guess what? Minute 20 in this movie, we know this person's going to die, and the rest of the movie is going to be about us being sad about it. Are you ready? Like, there are movies.
Hamnet?
Okay. I didn't see Hamnet, and I shouldn't. I have no opinions
explain
on
the plot, or
well, I actually do think I could explain the plot of Hamnet, but I won't.
It's very so. It's like I cried so much in that movie, but it also just like at one point in the movie, I was just like, "Fucking hell!" Like you I see what you're doing. And fuck you for doing it.
It's like, and maybe the word is manipulative. I don't know. I haven't seen Hamnet. I'm not using that word for Hamnet. I'm just saying, like, what I've seen, everybody says is like, you're gonna cry.
You're gonna cry.
The whole thing is like about grief and about losing a child and like these heavy things. Whereas again, The Door, and again, I keep bringing up this book that no one has read, and everyone's gonna be like, what the fuck is this? No one in the comments is gonna be happy about this pick. I'm telling you, everyone's gonna be pissed. But the Door is like, it is something that sinks into your soul in a sad way, whereas not just like, here's a sad circumstance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, sad circumstances are sad when they happen in real life. In books, though, sometimes you're like, this is a little contrived. In real life, though, if anything like that happens, I'm like, horrible tragedy. Horrible tragedy. Mm-hmm. But in books, it's like, did he really die by jumping off the Empire State Building? Yeah, 100%. I don't know why I said jumping off the Empire State Building. I've never seen Marley and Me, but I know the dog does die.
Well, Will, thanks for being here. Thank you for bringing in these books. I have a book for you.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's not good. That's the router.
Oh yeah, we need that.
We need that. Here is a book for you.
Hell yeah.
And I was supposed to intro it at the top, but and like be like, oh, look at this thing that hasn't been opened yet. And then, well, don't you want to stick around to see? And
that's a good point. We still could. I just untied it. You could fake it.
I could fake it. It's fine.
All right. Well, I'm very excited, and I will say, if you want to borrow any of these three, not that you probably have too much to read, but
I will say my TBR is thick.
Yeah.
At the moment, but I do. They all sound really interesting, and I'm very interested. How many times can I say interesting? I do want to read them.
Yeah, no, totally. I'm very excited to open this. This is very nice. Okay.
You may have read it. I'm trying to remember.
No, I have definitely not read this.
This is early work by Andrew Martin, and it's a book that is a non-eat your vegetables book. It's very gossipy. It's very just like
I'm seeing the word sexual adventurer on the back.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna just
it's about
so it's
like,
not. It doesn't sound vegetable-y to me.
It's about like clever, overeducated, underemployed people making horrible decisions, and it is incredibly fun. But also there is a lot of depth to it. I like this author a lot, and I like this book a lot, and I think you'll enjoy it.
Thank you so much. I honestly, this looks right up my alley. This looks great. I like a book that's sort of about that has because a character is looking for inspiration for his novel in the novel, which is something that I think done well is something I basically always like.
Yeah.
Is like I like a metafictional element because look, what do writers know? Not that much, right? And people always say write what you know, blah blah blah, and you can do a lot of research or whatever. But I always like it when people find a way to tie in the thing that they probably think the most about, which is writing and like language construction.
And the thing is like this novel, every guy who looks like me at every coffee shop in Los Angeles has tried to write this.
Totally. Yeah.
And it hasn't worked. This is the one that actually works.
That's in
my opinion.
That's the thing is like I feel like it's so easy to do the metafictional thing gone wrong, where you're
For
like,
sure.
It's just really easy to overdo.
Yeah. But he pulls it off because he's just sentence to sentence such a good writer.
Well, thank you so much. I super appreciate it. I truly can't wait to read it. I will say I do think of these three, I'd be giving you probably my Cloud Atlas copy because I think you would enjoy reading my silly marginalia.
All the yeah.
So,
you know what? If I'll take it if you give me just carte blanche to like make content out of the marginalia.
Oh, sure. I don't think there's anything in here that's that crazy. Okay, here's another really good stuff. Good stuff in here. I mean, the thing is that I also only wrote some notes, and most of the notes are me being like, this is funny. I like this part. Or just underlining something.
Well, Will, thank you for being here. What do you got to plug? What's going on?
Nothing to plug right now other than my Instagram. At some point I got to make a TikTok, I guess. You can follow me at Witwer, Witwer. That's how you spell it. Don't wear it out. I grew up with my parents spelling that like the bank and stuff. Anyway, no one knows how to spell Witwer. They want to put H's in it.
It's spelled like it sounds.
Yeah, but people in America, the W sound comes with an H. Like, remember that Family Guy bit of Brian the dog saying, Cool Whip. Do you have any memory of this? No.
We gotta wrap this up.
Not a podcast to bring up Family Guy. I've only seen so little Family Guy, but Cool Whip. Come on.
No. Of course I know. Of course I get
but people try to quit horror is what they do.
Okay.
And it's like, I got to spell it out. But follow me there. Hopefully something exciting happening soon. But anyway, nothing to plug other than that.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And thank you to everyone watching and listening for watching and listening. And as always, keep reading.